This is On the Flywheel, a podcast where each week we talk to entrepreneurs and professionals about the practical things they do to build and keep momentum in their personal and professional lives. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of On the Flywheel. I'm your host, Jonathan Mahrt of Flywheel Consulting, and today we have on the podcast Stephen McNeil.
Jonathan, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for bearing with me.
I've always wanted to say that, by the way. It's good to be a guest now. We're like, thank you for having me. And pretty soon I'll say, thanks for having me back.
I'm sure you'll be a repeat guest.
I'll be recurring.
Yeah, you'll be regular.
I'm the cheapest guest around. It's like, don't even owe me snacks. Just want to come in
just chill up.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking.
Well, we're borrowing the podcast space from a friend, and he even gave you free sparkling water, so I don't even have to supply snacks.
As much as I need. The fact once he said, help yourself, there's water in the fridge, all sorts of other drinks. I said, well, that was a huge mistake. He's going to be going to Costco every weekend.
I always tell people never offer unless you're serious, because I will take you on.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Well, great to be here.
Yeah.
And congrats on getting this going.
I'm excited. Thank you. It's first episode went pretty well, I think, so now we're just going to keep chugging along.
Yeah, very good.
So let's jump into it. I always like to start with getting a little bit of background from the guests, what you currently do, maybe a little bit of your education, and then kind of the career path, your career journey to get to the point you're at right now.
Yeah, for sure. I'll, so we're filming this out of Petaluma, and maybe I'll start from the beginning and work the journey forward.
Yeah.
I'm born and raised Petaluma, went to Petaluma High, had some great classmates, Jonathan included.
Yeah.
And went to Pepperdine University for undergraduate college. Met my wife there. We got married there, and have since moved back up to Petaluma. Started my career at McNeil Insurance, which was an employee benefits agency, so health insurance and benefits for companies, helping employers consult on what's best for their employees was our family business. And did that, became Aero Benefits. I can dive deep on all of the specifics of this, but moved our office to Petaluma, and we were about a $10 million benefits agency at the time, and then in January 2019 sold our agency to a private equity backed, it was a brand new company at the time. And again, I'll fast forward through some of this. We can dive deeper, but one of those entities that we had purchased is called True Network, which is where I work now. I lead our partnership team there. So I'm working with Aero Benefits, the agency and former family business of mine, and 85 other benefits agencies like Aero across the country, helping negotiate better contracts with them and with our strategic partnerships, helping them collaborate, sharing best practices that I've learned. It's a sort of a dream job for me.
That's awesome. I just saw your LinkedIn post. You just put on like a whole part of what you do is like put on conferences for other insurance agents.
That's right. Yeah. So it's very if you think about if you're viewing this and you work at a coffee shop or insert type of business here, it's that imagine paying to be part of a national organization where these are people you're not competing with but are like entities to you, to say, hey, like what are you doing? These are the pain points I'm having. How have you dealt with that? Elevating best practices, sharing collaborations where people not just collaborate at our events but then become friends and stay in touch throughout the year, right? Hey, I have an opportunity. How would you guys handle this? And to bounce that off peers who, again, aren't competing with you, but know what
share
you're going through.
Best practices and stuff
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah. That's really neat. We'll definitely jump into that in a little bit and kind of dig into, because you have a very interesting career arc from working in a family business, then getting basically bought out, and then working for that company. So you've kind of gone from small business to like doing the corporate thing, but carving out a very interesting niche for yourself. So I definitely want to jump into that a little bit more. Yeah. But where I want to start right now is just kind of like, the little things you do in your personal life that you think help make you successful. And the first question I like to ask everyone is, are you a morning or are you a night person?
Definitely a morning person. Consistently. I think I wake up earlier on weekends because I'm so excited to maximize my day. If I'm up past 10 p.m., either a family member is ill or I'm in a different time zone and a mistake's been made. But I really try to get to bed early, and I love to wake up early, and that's when I'm most productive and get to kind of play out my morning ritual.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think one of the reasons I'm asking is because definitely, I mean, I'm also generally a morning person, but I also think that there's a culture of like you're only productive if you're a morning person. Like there's a whole hustle and grind thing about being morning people. So I'm trying to gauge the temperature of how much that's actually true, right? Because I also don't think it's bad to be a night person necessarily. It's just
that's right.
You know, we don't want to shame the night people. You know?
No. An ecosystem is only healthy with that diversity.
Exactly.
So somebody's got to be doing the night shift.
So I want to tell people it's okay if you're not a morning person.
No judgment. No judgment towards the night people.
Exactly. So. Are there, as a part of your morning routine, are there any like specific techniques or strategies that you use to kind of get your day going?
Yeah, I'm always tinkering with it, and I know you and I know this from conversations of like whether it's a morning routine or like I just love trying to do things of kind of how do you kind of hack, if I know I'm a procrastinator,
optimize the system.
And what can I do to fix something where I'm like, why am I procrastinating on this? Like, what tools can I put myself in place to be more successful? What's keeping me from?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so from a morning perspective, I've got kind of my routine of up to like our dog Lana, right? Like follows me down at a certain time. Like everything's like a timed choreography, not intended so, but. There's I'll go to certain websites just to say, okay, over a cup of coffee, let me make sure I've read kind of the key news articles. I'm aware of anything big that is going on.
What's going on in the world, yeah.
Yeah. And then I've started doing a morning workout routine that's pretty light.
Okay.
So it's not like build that big sweat, but it's enough to have me feel like, okay, I'm now, if I do nothing else for my health today, I took time out of my day to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's been in the last several months I've started that, and that's been a great add.
Yeah.
Which goes to the tinkering concept of sometimes you have I'll get that third cup of coffee and all of a sudden you're very lethargic, you haven't eaten, like now all of a sudden you've set yourself up for failure for the day, and so it's those listening to your body, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, I love that.
As a 34-year-old trying to
we're so old now,
realizing that his body is not what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. You can't just power through things in the same way anymore. It's amazing. Even just being in your 30s isn't that old, but it is like you definitely feel the change for sure.
It's where like you start to go, oh, I'm not invincible.
Yeah.
Like there's this humility that comes with it, and yes, then it gets worse. But like now's the time to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That's a journey I'm also trying to work on myself. So I think we've kind of jumped into it a little bit. What about throughout the rest of the day? Are there any specific other habits or things that you do during the day that you think really help you stay on track and stay focused or be successful?
This is a slightly different take on it.
Sure.
But I forget where I even saw this. Maybe it was James Clear, Atomic Habits, or something in that category where it was like, setting yourself up for the day actually starts the night before.
Okay.
So it's how late did you stay out?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have drink a bunch of alcohol before? Like if you wake up feeling not great, you have now derailed your chance of like starting really strong, and so I think that's all part of it. So for me, I actually have you're going to hear this throughout the podcast. Like I'm a process, write down, like follow my little checklist, not within like so rigid, but I have a winding down before bed checklist to set myself up.
Okay.
This comes back to your question around like, I have a standing desk at home.
Mm-hmm. I
will lift the standing desk before I go to bed so that when I get to my desk, I'm like standing, and because when you sleep, you're a little more.
Yeah.
So it's like just like even posture's better, and I'm going to stand for that first part as long as I can or will. Make sure I've got refilled water bottles at my desk, and then by my bedside table.
Okay.
Before I go to bed, and so I think then having water, like it's those little things to say, okay, how can you, when a day gets chaotic, what can you do to, have
like, how do you plan for like what like the bad habits of future Stephen or
That's right.
future Jonathan?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
More healthy snacks, the whole deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, like it's the simple things. Sometimes it's like I know, like okay, if I know I need to get something in the morning. I mean, and this is not like a new idea, but it's like, oh, I better put that in my car now because I know I'm thinking about it now. I will not remember it in the morning. Even if I set a reminder for myself, I may miss it because I'm trying to like hurry out the door,
Yeah.
So what other, so you have a winding down checklist. Do you have any other kinds of checklists in your life that you kind of utilize to stay on track through the day?
I'd say there are 2 apps in my life that have been so critical for me.
Okay.
One is called Todoist.
All right.
Which is, kind of a task manager, but I was I don't want to hop around too much.
No, go for it.
When I was at Arrow, I had the opportunity to be part of a group called Vistage, which is like a CEO peer advisory group.
Great group, yeah.
And so they'll bring in kind of these world-class speakers on different topics. And so I was in Vistage for about 3 years, and one speaker that really made an impression on me, her name was Maura Thomas, and it was about kind of like the productivity of like how do you use, and the acronym's like PIMS or something, where it's a productivity informational management system. If that's right, I just pulled that out of nowhere.
That's pretty good.
But it was, like, hey, like, what information do you put on your calendar and when? What do you put on a task manager and when? What about email?
Right.
Text messages? Like, how are you filtering systems? Because you're getting bombarded as a human being in society every day.
Yeah. And
how are you keeping what's a priority in front of you? How are you staying organized? Because at the time, when I was at Arrow, I had a to-do list, a personal to-do list that was on Apple Note. I had a to-do list that I had written down on my handwritten. My email inbox was kind of a to-do list.
Well, yeah, that's one of my things is like email is just an inbox that is just a task list that everyone gets to add to, and you have no control over it.
That's right.
So I want to talk about email in a second.
Unless you make the system to like get ahead of that, for sure. So Todoist, just going back to the 2 apps, that huge for me in terms of, if I got a call right now from my wife, hey, can you go do this, later today? Like, I immediately, while I'm still on the phone, I'll put it there because I'm referencing that throughout the day, where I feel really confident that, like, sure, stuff slips by me every once in a while, but like when people reach out to me, it is always on my radar, and I will complete that task.
Okay.
So but that's been really helpful versus like the thought of just being like, yeah, I'll get to it, and then you forget or don't have a system to make sure you don't.
Yeah.
That's not setting me up for success.
Yeah, I mean, there is a key. That's something I've learned the hard way is I will not remember things. Yeah. I have to write it down somewhere, 100%. So are you using any are you using paper at all in conjunction with Todoist, or is it just your task manager?
I will for temporary notes.
Okay.
And I like doing handwritten. I have a Remarkable tablet. Sometimes I use that. It's one of the same for me. But like jotting things down.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something I want to expand on, or I capture notes later, in reflection of when I was writing at the time. But I found that to be more successful. But I've stopped doing handwritten to-do lists. Like everything's out of Todoist.
Okay.
If it's something that I'm committing to myself, or I've committed to somebody that I'm going to do.
Okay. So how are you? Is there any kind of specific? I mean, a little bit of this some of it's just practical, right? A little bit of this sounds like GTD, David Allen. But how are you organizing your task manager? Because I also find like it's very easy that a task manager just becomes like a giant bucket full of things to do, and it's hard to prioritize. It gets overwhelming. It's almost like sometimes you like just declare bankruptcy and like delete everything and start over, or you go to the next task manager because that's going to solve your problems.
Yeah, sure. It's proactive on cleanup. I mean, there are weeks where you intend to get XYZ done, but ABCD has been added and was a fire and a priority, and all of a sudden you're now dealing with a list twice as big than when you started the day. So at some point you have to say, all right, this task that I've committed to, like, is this still a priority?
Sure.
Is this timeline realistic? Sometimes because it's a commitment I've made, I might follow up with the person to say, hey, actually, this is no longer a priority for me.
Yeah.
I'm actually not going to proceed with this. Or could be, hey, I haven't gotten to this yet, and I'm dealing with some priorities. Is next week okay?
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a great thing to hit on right there. Is that sometimes like you have something hanging over your head, you need to get it done, but then stuff just keeps piling up in your inbox. That's a fire or even higher priority. You have to do those things, and I think it goes a long way if you actually just send someone an email and say, hey, like, I haven't forgotten about you. This is still a priority to me. I'm just like in the trenches right now. Like you said, is it okay if I get back to you in a second? And just the fact that you're just touching base with them, like, and maintaining communication, because sometimes like you send something to someone, ask them to do something, you may not hear back from them for a while, and you're like, okay, well, I guess maybe they're going to get back to me, maybe they're not.
Is this being worked on? Yeah, that lack of clarity can cause discomfort, confusion.
Yeah. You and I
actually talked about this recently.
Yeah, we did.
of like everything I'm talking about. Like some people aren't wired this way, and that's okay. Like you can still be successful. But for me, being like I'm very process driven, and I probably perfectionist to some degree of like I have a high standard of, hey, if I commit to doing something, I want to make sure I do it no matter how small or big.
Right.
And but what I was finding was like, and I still find this today, that like I get way stressed if there's something that I have committed to but haven't done, and it's there's a story you tell yourself like this person's probably wondering where it's at, and I just haven't been able to get all those things. And
right.
It was a Jeff Bezos clip. This is like young Jeff Bezos, where he's talking about stress.
He still has a little bit of hair.
Still a little bit of hair, but he said that so much of like stress is natural,
right?
But so much of like unnecessary stress is when there's something that's in your control that you haven't handled yet.
That's very insightful. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for me, and he talks about in this video, it's like, and just to what we're talking about is, if there's something where I'm like, I committed to doing this, and now a week's gone by, they haven't asked for it, but like, how do you prioritize all that? I'll shoot that quick email to say, hey, just want to let you know this is still on my radar, and even if they don't respond to that, in my mind, I've at least touched base.
Right.
Versus you blink, 3 weeks have gone by. Yeah. And is this still a priority for them? They haven't asked about it, or what?
Well, there's such a mental load too that can happen. It's just like sitting there in the back of your mind. You're trying to do everything, do other stuff, focus on other things, and it's always kind of nagging at you. You're supposed to be offline at home, relaxing. It's the weekend, and it's just sitting there, grinding on you, and that's not good for anyone. So
so that's where I'm currently at. Of like, what are as we talk about, how do you put systems around you to kind of cater to your quirks and weaknesses and strengths?
Yeah,
is for me, it's I need to get, what can I do to set myself up for success so I'm not feeling stressed on a weekend or as I'm going to bed or whatever, because there's always going to be stuff you haven't done yet, right? That's just like human nature. It's a rule of
I think that's a great kind of like line through everything we're talking about so far, is just like knowing yourself and being honest with yourself about your strengths and weaknesses. Like that's something that I had to come to terms with like earlier in my career, is that like I had so much stuff coming in, and in the beginning be like, oh yeah, I'd remember that. But it's not just like, so then I was like, okay, I have to be absolutely vigilant about writing everything down, even if I think it's a minor thing. And sometimes just writing it down, it's in my brain, I get it done. I never even have to go back to the the task manager checklist to remember to do it. But just the act of writing it down was enough, because I knew I'm gonna forget it. Like I think that's one of the biggest things people make a mistake on, is like they trust themselves way too much. I take pretty religious notes in any meeting, or on anything really, and I write everything down in terms of tasks, because I know I'll forget it. I have a horrible memory.
Yeah.
So. We talked about Todoist, second app. We haven't gotten to the second one.
Called YNAB, or You Need a Budget.
Okay.
And I had been on, there's Mint. There's some like ones that have existed over the time, and they'd connect to your bank account and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I was in a position where, I wasn't married yet, but I was starting my career living at home with my parents at the time, right out of college. And I felt like, I think I'm saving.
Yeah.
But like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And okay, like you can kind of get a sense of bank account, but then when it started getting like, oh, like we're gonna start saving, we're gonna buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
It was like all the more reason. Like now you have a mortgage.
Yeah.
Like, are we gonna be in the hole every? Like again, no idea beyond like you checking out balance reports of maybe where you're at. Where there's, well, then you went on vacation and that was a really heavy month. Like So there was a lot of like, I don't have the data. And so I Googled just a few different ones, and YNAB consistently came up, and they had a really good video which talks about the importance of video and like explaining concepts for a prospective client. Just we can talk about that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I was so locked in on that. Their approach so resonates with me that I did my trial, but I was like, I'm all in, and it was this was like November 1st or no, this was like Thanksgiving time, and I had the Thanksgiving holiday, and so December 1st I started. I've been doing it for like over 4 years, and it's like I've never missed a penny. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and now I've automated a lot of stuff where it doesn't take a lot of time, but to be able to say like I just bought an electric vehicle. I'm like, am I saving on gas? How much am I saving on gas? Like within 60 seconds, I could tell you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have that historical thing. How much is a dog really?
Yeah.
Right? There's so many things where I go, as if Elizabeth and I ever want to make a big, investment decision or purchase, if there was something that we were thinking, like, to be able to say, okay, like, let's model it.
Yeah.
And to even know that I have the option to do that is like this. It's like this burden you didn't know was there.
Yeah.
So the second I started budgeting, like, I felt good relief right away. And now that I've been doing it as long as I have, that's been huge. And so that's a weekly, every weekend, I've got a kind of like a things I want to do every weekend. That's like just personal to do thing I don't do during the week. Updating my budgeting, making sure everything's categorized and allocated.
That's great.
Routine.
Okay, so all right, what are any other like really critical things you try to get to every single weekend? What else is on that list that you're willing to share?
All right, this is where it gets really well. I'm going to even pull out Todoist. I'm just going to tell you.
All right. So this is this like a recurring list of tasks that show up in Todoist for you?
So the best thing about Todoist is like they stay in their lane, but like I could say every third Saturday of every quarter.
Yeah.
Right. Like and it will do that for you.
Yeah. Todoist. One of the cool features about Todoist is it has natural language input. Right. So you literally write it out like that. You say, yeah, every third Saturday I want to mow the lawn.
And it will auto sync. So I've actually taught my system to a number of colleagues just over the last 3 years. I think people know like what is this Todoist? Thing. Why is Stephen such a machine? And people laugh at me. I've started titling the presentation this, but it's like, never forget to change your toothbrush head, because I have a reminder every 2 months I will switch out my toothbrush head, and I never forget.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it.
So I'm a real hoot at parties.
Hey, let me tell you about this something that's going to change your life.
They're like, oh, wow, great. So I'll have it's this is again every Saturday. I have a look back through all photos I took on my iPhone and delete the ones that were duplicates or not as good, whatever. Because you just take, you go out with friends, you take a bunch, and now you've got 6, but really only 1 is what you needed.
Yeah.
And it was like overkill. So like to keep up with the management.
Oh, I hate deleting. I don't delete any photos. I just assume I need them all.
Resonating.
No. That's great. That's what you should do.
Yes.
Right, because you just end up with 16 copies of the same photo and you don't really need all of them. So your approach is probably better than mine. But let's jump on this photo thing, because you have a very unique approach to photos.
Yes.
So talk about your photo philosophy here.
All right. So one, I'm like a photo madman. If we're out in public and a stranger walks up, says like, hey, when did you take a photo of us? Like the group I'm with will know, like, Steven, take it. Steven's gonna take it. I get really into it, love it. But I take photos all the time, even if it's just like I'll take one. Remind me, but I'll take one before we leave, because like I just like capturing where was I at a certain time, and a unique angle or something that normally it's not like a staged, photo, which are also fun, but to be like, kind of like fisheye lens view, getting the whole studio, like to me that's just a special memory, right? Yeah. And so, taking these photos, I'm taking photos of people. When people send me photos that I'm in, like I'll save them. So several years ago, I went back to all these external hard drives, any like digital photo I had from high school before iPhones were even a thing. Yeah. I said, I just want to get everything in the iCloud, at least so it's there. I need to figure out my backup to the iCloud, because that's not exactly foolproof, but conversation.
We'll talk about that after the podcast.
Yeah. But but saying like, I want, the fact that I can go in my phone and pull up like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and have the photos. And so as I'm going back through photos, like I just love going back through old photos. If I see like, hey, there's a fun photo of Jonathan that was like 15 years ago to the day, I use it as my reach out to people. Yeah,
I've personally experienced it, and it makes people. I mean, it made me feel great. Yeah,
Yeah, and because there is this like, I haven't talked to that person in 15 years, and yet this photo was taken. I haven't talked, like, that'd be weird. If I hear that sometimes from people, and you go like, nobody, unless it was a really bad memory for them. Yeah, people love memory lane.
Yeah, I mean, people love nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's no new movies anymore, right? It's just rebooting everything or basing things on video games from your childhood and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah. So I am constantly using that. The joke I always make is like I'm like a grandmother with newspaper clippings that's like always shipping articles to her grandchildren that she thinks like, oh, I know, I thought of you. I think you'll like this. That's what I do socially. Like I'm not on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. So that's my way of keeping in touch.
Yeah.
I text photos all the time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I got us a little off track, but I just like you're very intentional. When we've spent time together, you're very intentional about the photos thing, and I think that's awesome. So I want people to kind of hear about that. Let's get back to the YNAB situation, because I think that's something that's really important for people, and I think probably most people know that it's a good idea, but I don't think they understand quite the impact of just like knowing where your money's going, both from a personal and a professional perspective. Like if you're professional, if you don't own your own business or aren't helping run a business, then it's not as applicable, but I still think it's an important thing to talk about, because like knowing your costs, whether it's in your personal life or professional life, is critical to being successful, because I think I see that a lot. Like I'm actually helping a business right now. It's a profitable business. It's successful, but they don't. I'm helping them understand exactly how much, like document the process, know how much time each step of the process takes, how many people are involved in each step of the process, and then what all the specific material costs are for creating this specific product. So you actually know, like, hey, am I making money on each of these SKUs? Am I making enough money on each of these SKUs? Am I making too little? Oh, is this thing that I thought is that super profitable actually isn't, and I should stop doing it, right? So it's not until you actually know how much time and money is taking to make something or to do something in your business that you can really make informed decisions. Just like, can we afford to buy a house? Can I afford to buy a new car? All those things are so critical to making decisions.
Yeah, like, when you think about a company having a CFO, typically you're going to be a larger, employer if you're going to have a CFO to strategically think about your financials.
Right.
Except like if you think like if you're a small business and you're say 3 employees, 6 employees, like it's still a profit and loss statement.
Yeah.
It still files the government the same way, and you still have investment decisions to make that are going to be, relative to your profit margin, revenue, still going to be meaningful decisions to make.
Yeah.
And the more sophisticated you can get around understanding your finances, and it sounds like a basic thing, because if you're an entrepreneur, you generally are going to have a sense. And yet, at Arrow, we were fine. We had a good understanding of our business. We knew we were making money at the end of the year, and yet we ended up hiring a part-time CFO to help us, just think about our business differently. Great investment. Great investment.
Yeah.
And we talk about technology resources and things too. Like there's a lot you can do as an employer to become more sophisticated and have you think about your business differently.
Yeah.
That'll set you up for success long term and help you model better, right?
Absolutely. And I think one of the dangers too, for small business owners, is that they manage by their bank account. I literally heard someone that provides bookkeeping and kind of CFO services to people talk about this today, and she's like, people manage their business from their bank account, and that's a dangerous mistake to make, because suddenly something comes out of your bank account that you weren't expecting, because you're like, oh, I'm just managing by my balance. Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it staying the same? Well, that may, from a planning perspective, like things may not have come out that you were expecting, all those kinds of things, as opposed to having actual true, like some set of books, sophistication depending on your business, knowing that, oh, I've already accounted for this expense, even though my bank account, it hasn't come out of my bank account yet. And that's a really dangerous thing people do in personal and professional lives.
Yeah.
So, all right, we've talked about, talked about a lot of good things here. So and we've kind of touched on these things, but I want to jump a little bit more specifically into like some of your like approaches to business and your professional life. So what's the best part and the worst part about what you do?
Professionally?
Yes, professionally.
Best part, and you mentioned my LinkedIn, because I just wrote a LinkedIn post yesterday on, I think I've got like for who I am and where I am in my life, the dream job.
Yeah.
Just the intersection of what I do well and who I get to work with. We're really blessed. So overall, I'd say that's, the best part is it's being in a really cool culture of it. It's the agencies we work with, it's the team that I work with. For me to be, do a comedy sketch, like all that stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, like.
Yeah,
that's just there's not many jobs that would accommodate that, and that's really awesome. So like overall, I think that's great. So least favorite part of my job, it is I talked about the stress element of, and some of it's a me thing of, his inbox is hit, like I just feel tapped,
right.
And this has been even in my last role too, which same company, but in between Arrow and my current role, of like, okay, how do I manage stuff? And maybe it's me setting boundaries more or what have you. But there's been a few times where I've thrown up the white flag of like, hey, Todoist is doing all it can do, but like it's clear it's not going to get. There's so many hours in the day. It's clear it's not going to get done. And the answer can't be I'm just going to sleep less, which is what I used to say.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'll just stay up
the
later.
older you are, the more important sleep is.
Yeah.
Another one of those.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say that's part of it. It's the I think there's an administrative side to any job.
Yeah.
And that's probably,
sure.
if I could do, comedy bits all day and also just talk to people, right? Like you and I share that in common. We love sitting in front of somebody and just talking about their business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I love doing it. Part
fulfilling.
of the reason I'm starting this is just to be able to learn about people and their journey. And
that's right.
It's awesome. So kind of tying into that, in terms of like what you love doing, like what makes you different from other people? What do you think is kind of your, unique trait or your unique skill that makes you successful in your job right now? Or professionally in general? Yeah,
I mean, if it hasn't come across already, I'm neurotic.
I would never say that.
Oh, well, I guess that toothbrush thing's really working for him. That's interesting. Like I don't think I'm any smarter than the people I work with. I don't think I'm, any more, efficient. I could probably be more efficient. Like I think the things, and yet I think I've always tried to be authentic to myself and always tried to, do that good job, putting a lot of pressure on myself for that. And I think in my career trajectory, I think there's people have observed that. I think people appreciate it. And I think just with the personality of like, hey, Stephen's a nice guy. He's a good guy. Right? Yeah. Like, I'm empathetic. Good active listener. I think that mixed with this kind of like random comedy streak that I have, like at least in my current role, to be able to leverage those things, it's hard to recreate that. Like I think the culture would just be different.
Yeah. I think as someone who knows you, I think it's definitely like we talked about in the beginning. I think for me, my perception of it is very personal, very real. Like you get what you see is what you get. And then I think the other side of it is that you're just like, because you're so process driven, like you're reliable, right? You can, because you have a process, you execute well. It's not just about wanting to do a good job. It's that you know what you need to do when you need to do it. And I think that's something that a lot of people can learn from, is just like being being trusted to reliably execute on your job over and over again. I think is a huge thing. So let's we're getting close to the end of our time here. So I want to jump in. I want to have one more question about this, and then I want to kind of jump into a couple more other things. So what do you think is one thing that most people get wrong in your industry or just business in general?
What do people get wrong?
And if everyone's right, then no worries.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I'm thinking about our industry too.
Just the common mistake you see people make, big or small, in their professional lives.
I think, and this is insurance. I'll say for insurance, but this will relate to any industry. It's like, it's one thing to like stay on top of market trends, and some people do that, some don't, right? But understanding like where is the opportunity that fits within the trends, like where is this going? I sometimes I feel like there's a disconnect that really the best entrepreneurs will find to say, it's one thing to say healthcare costs are going up, right? Every renewal, it's a 7% increase, and every 10 years that means your premiums have doubled, right? Like all that stuff to say like, okay, well it's one thing to know that trend and to talk about it with your clients. It's another to say like, how can I position my business to where culturally we are addressing that problem.
Mm-hmm.
So like in our industry, our top performer businesses that are insurance agencies are ones that are saying, hey, we are all about stopping this trend. Our clients are people that buy into that philosophy, and yet there's a lot of agencies or businesses that I work with where it's kind of like, well, it is what it is.
Right.
Like I think it's easy, and so I think this applies to AI. Totally separate topic, but similar. Of like, that's one where it's like, okay, I keep hearing about AI. I'm aware of it. I see the headlines. I see how smart it is. Okay, well, what are you doing about it to get ahead of it? Get ahead of your competition. Right. And I think it takes that thoughtful and also courage to make a pivot or to shift or to invest to say, this is what we believe is happening, and let's actually put ourselves out there a little bit.
Right.
To get ahead, go to where the hockey puck is going.
So what I'm hearing is it's not just about like letting things happen to you or even just reacting as they happen. It's about being proactive and like trying to problem solve proactively as things are happening.
Yeah, and I think being willing at any time to break status quo, even if it's your own company's status quo.
Yeah,
right?
People hate to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great insight. Definitely people like get stuck. And they don't want to change because they feel change is too hard. I mean, every organization and every individual deals with it. So I think that's a great insight. So let's talk about work-life balance a little bit, because that's, some people argue it doesn't exist. Other people call it a spectrum. You're always going to kind of like be swinging that pendulum back and forth. But what do you do to kind of balance the demands of your personal and professional life? Is there anything specific?
I've really tried, like we talk about morning routine, I've really tried to say I'm not looking at work email until I've completed my routine.
Yeah.
Because
do you have email on your phone, or at least your work email on your phone?
I do. I might say, I don't want to say I've never had this, but like last 15 years, I've never had notifications ever.
Oh no, I hate email notifications.
Yeah.
Hard pass on that.
All notifications for me, period, except text messages.
Oh, really?
Maybe if it's like an airline or something where I think it's.
I am pretty rigid about winnowing down my notifications because I don't want to get constantly bothered. But I am I do let a little bit more through than that.
Like there's some people I work with that have their Apple Watch will buzz every time an email comes through. I'm like, I would.
That sounds like my nightmare.
Yeah, and they seem to be fine, normal people. I don't know. But it would drive me insane.
Yeah, no, I have to turn that off because I used to have email notifications on and stuff like that, and it would cause me anxiety because I'd like see something come through that would stress me out. I'm like, this doesn't. Like I need to and then I would get distracted from whatever I was doing, or it'd be personal time, and it would be awful. So I'm in agreement with you on that one.
Yeah.
Besides that, anything else?
It's for me, it's the boundary thing. Like they'll say this, like, don't never do work from your bed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I do not like devices. I mean, my phone will come in and charge, but like otherwise, like my laptop does not come in my master bedroom.
Okay.
So I think that it is those boundaries of. I have no problem working late, but like for me, it's like when I sit down at my desk, it's kind of like it's a session. It's like suiting up to go to work. Like you are like, okay, when I'm here, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's particularly important because you work from home, right?
That's right. Yeah, the blurry lines of, home life and work life when you're there 24/7.
Yeah.
This is actually my first time out in months. This is great. The sun is still going strong.
That's good.
Yeah, good.
That's good. So, are there any activities outside of work that help you recharge your energy and contribute to your mental health?
I walk my dog every day, sometimes more than once. But that's like the outside time is huge.
Yeah.
I try to get a little bit of sunshine in the morning if I can. I mean, and it sounds silly to say, but when you're working from home, like I'm typically on calls 7 a.m., sometimes sooner, until 2 or 3. So it's like there are days where I haven't even gone outside.
Yeah.
And that's pretty. That's not great.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah.
So there's that. You're well aware of the board game habit. I say habit like it's not an addiction. It's
yeah. You've gotten really sucked in.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we play board games every week with some friends.
Our next door neighbor. Yeah.
Well, your next door neighbor.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I feel like you're over enough. It's like ours. I pay the property taxes, but again, you're welcome anytime.
Yeah. No, that's been an awesome thing kind of to build that little community and
Yeah.
play games and stuff. It's great for me. I don't spend any money on games. I just show up because you guys buy games so rapidly. There's no point in me spending any money on games.
And yet there's this element where it's like these are people that are so passionate about their hobby and craft, and they're so excited to bring you into the world. Yeah, like they were very upset when I started buying games. They were like, we're not even playing the games we're getting. But
they were so insistent about me because I was like,
Yes.
I'm not contributing anything.
They said we're not going to let what happened to Stephen happen to Jonathan. We've learned our.
So I just bring beer now. I make sure to bring too much beer.
There you go. And frankly, you're the most popular guy for it. So
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the end of our time together. It's been awesome. I want to get into like some of my bonus questions that I like asking
Sure.
people. So the first one is, what are the 4 books you've gifted the most to people?
The first question is, have I ever gifted more than 4 books?
That's fair.
I'll say
or one or 2 or 1. You know, if you got just a couple go-tos.
I know I've gifted to you, I think, but I think you already had a copy, and it was really awkward. It was I'm just kidding. It was Atomic Habits, James Clear.
That's true. Yes.
That book to me is like a must-read.
Yes. Yes. It speaks to a lot of the things you've been talking about today. Yeah.
Yeah. There's Jesse Cole, who's the founder of the Savannah Bananas.
Okay.
Yellow Tux guy.
Oh, yeah.
Best entrepreneurial story I've heard. He has a book that I've gifted, which is great. And
do you know the name of it?
So he has 2 now, and I'm blank. The second one's coming to mind, so I'm blanking on it.
I'll look it up and add it to both books to the descriptions.
That's so cool. I've always wanted to say that too. Like link in the description below. Check it out.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And then the last one is, what would you put on, if you could put anything on a billboard over like a busy freeway that lots of people are going to see, like what's the one thing you would put on that billboard?
I feel like there's a sassy joke to make there, like off the cuff.
Fair enough.
You know, truthfully, I would do something that was just not, I don't want to say profound, but very optimistic that I think the community needed to hear.
Okay.
I think I would use it for like a kind of thought-provoking, but maybe something where if they're driving and either neutral or not having a great day, something that would bring them a little joy.
I love that. Whether it's a joke or something else. That's great. Well, Stephen, it's been awesome chatting to you, and time has flown by. We could spend probably hours just talking about this stuff.
And we have before. Unrecorded.
Unrecorded, yeah. Not even getting content out of it. Unbelievable. So,
thank you for having me. I'm very excited for you. I think the world of you. I'm excited for this next venture for you, and all the value that you bring to just businesses and that you have, and the fact that you've invited me to be on here is a joy. So,
well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Once again, it's been awesome having you on and chatting with you today, and thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks, Sean.